Everybody's face is getting stolen right now by the AI. We are all being impersonated. Even small creators, business owners like you and I. I've been impersonated on X recently, on Instagram, and I don't even have a very active account there. So we are all in the vulnerability. I asked Luke to be here because Luke Arrigoni is the CEO and founder of Lodi AI, and they are on a mission to protect us from exactly these things. So, welcome everyone. Luke Arrigoni.
Thanks for having me here. I think we're gonna have a real fun conversation, Simon.
Who owns our digital face?
So this is actually a really interesting legal question. Depending on where you go, you're going to get different answers. But I think the important part for everyone to understand is that's also contextual. So like if you're out in public, and there's a background and you're in like a shot and it's a news event. It could be in the United States like First Amendment. And by the way, I would preface this by saying I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the ins and outs. But I just to give people a framework of how complicated it is under certain contexts, your face could be seen as First Amendment, unless you're trying to sell something or someone is trying to sell something with your face, and then it could be a right of publicity claim. And then when it comes to AI, there are an emerging number of bills that talk about the rights that we have with our likeness. When we say likeness, we mean face and voice. There's probably other ways that we can, name as well, but there's other things that can kind of be involved in that. But likeness is this broad term that we all think about. So to answer your question, who owns the rights to your face? I think a really simple reductive answer is you do under most situations.
Can lawmakers keep up with AI right now?
It feels like they're trying. There's a lot of problems, and this is specifically in the U.S. In the EU, they're aggressively legislating against AI or broad AI usage. So in the EU, yes, they're keeping up as best they can. Sometimes they are using too big of a hammer and perhaps ruining other things that they have no intention of doing. But for the most part, there's a diligence in Europe around trying to figure out how do we make sure that AI serves us and we don't serve it. And by the way, I don't mean like in a dystopian way. I mean like in a practical way. How do we keep this thing a tool that is useful for us as a society, and not just this thing that's running rampant, making people lose jobs, that kind of stuff.
And just for context, people, if you have not been hacked yet as a business owner, as a creator, this is what happened to me. I barely use Instagram. I just have it in case a friend or family wants to know what I'm doing. And what happened there is I get messages, Simon, somebody's using your account. I don't think you want to sell me some meme coins, right? And I said, no, I'm not selling meme coins. Who is doing that? And so I see that there was an impersonator, and it's quite a process. You have to either mobilize your own people and push them to block, to report, because nobody on the Instagram side will take notice. It's happening hundreds of times per second for them. They don't really care. And similar with YouTube, similar on X. What's what should people actually do, Luke?
So this is a little bit more straightforward. And I'm very biased, right? Because I think that they should use my service. But we'll talk about something more broad than just my service. The tools that we use are face recognition and voice recognition, and we'll do name checks and we'll look for things like really scammy blue check boxes that don't belong. So a service like this is really useful if you have that problem, because as you pointed out, these bigger platforms, they don't have the manpower to try and service a million or 10 million requests that might come in through a day saying, hey, can you remove this piece of content or this account? It's not really me and it pretends to be. But with a service like ours, we can find all of that and we can kind of fast lane that to those platforms to get that taken down.
Another more tricky situation was a member of the sprint club. They were coerced by somebody who gave them a negative Google review, and then send them a message. I'm gonna do a daily negative review unless you pay X amount of money. Does that
Yeah.
also is that also in your scope?
No, that kind of extortion, that's horrible, but that we have no real safeguards against that. That is unfortunately something that would be out of our control. Because to prove that someone wasn't a client is difficult to platforms, and it goes kind of beyond is this you? But man, that's if that has happened to you or your listeners, greatest sympathies. That has to be horrible.
That was tough. So people, if they don't protect themselves, it's gonna happen. Somebody is impersonating them and they start sending messages they don't want to be sending. What to do in that moment? Is it too late to call you guys? What can they do on their
No, no,
own?
no,
What do
that's
they
that's
have to do
perfectly
with you?
fine. So they could sign up for an account with us, and we can find them online, and then immediately issue those takedowns broadly across the platforms. So it's you don't have to we don't have to be preemptive. You don't have to have our service and then hope nothing bad happens. If you have a bad thing that happens, we're great for triage. I think that's where the vast majority of our clients end up using us is in a triage space.
Who is winning the deep fake war?
I guess you have to figure out what battles you want to talk about, right? So if you want to talk about deep fakes as in who's creating the best, most realistic deep fake, that's one. If you're talking about more abstract, are the good guys, the bad guys winning? That's a different kind of conversation. I am curious about all of them. Where are you curious? We'll dive into one.
Well, let's start with the listeners. They are business owners. So the good is their own marketing team. The bad is competitors making smear campaigns,
Yeah.
people coercing them, seeing them as a possible victim.
So the bad guys are definitely winning at the moment in terms of that type of coercive behavior. Um, that's of course deeply problematic. What I would say is if you are a business owner and you're trying to figure out, what do you do in this space or in this world, I think there's a really good case that could be made that you have the highest opportunity for arbitrage right now than in any time in history. That is to say, if there's a large company that's trying to compete with you or larger than you can use their weight against them. They are going to be big and slow, and implementing even the most basic piece of AI or an AI software to streamline or improve your customer's experience is going to take them months to get through, and you can go sign up now and just make that happen. Uh, Before, years in the past, when I've done business, if you want to make a change on something, a bigger change on something, everything takes time. Everything takes lots of resources. And we are really in a unique place right now that you can kind of go very you can compete very directly with people that are way out of your league using AI. So I guess I would encourage listeners if you're wondering, well, there's a bunch of bad, there is a bunch of good though, and I would be thinking about with all of your competitors, how can you leverage these new technologies in a way that will make them slow to move? How can you do something that, um, like you can go, like I said, I mentioned sign up for a service or develop a model, depending on what size you are or what resourcing you have. Both of those are very valid options. Um, like for a great example is Google came out with a bunch of models recently. I mean, it was across the board. They tackled. There was a big joke for maybe a week or two that Google killed half the startups in the valley. Uh, I think that for most of those startups, they can still use and leverage the fact that they can make decisions much faster than Google to beat Google. And I encourage everyone that's listening to this to think the same way. Don't be disheartened by a big company. Think about how you can move faster to use these really efficient tools.
I want to hear everything about how you are using these tools to grow your own business after one word from our sponsors. What if your business would run well even when you are on vacation? Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale. Get the exact checklists they use to go from stressed to fulfilled using the Strategy Sprints method. Order your copy of Strategy Sprints 12 Ways to Accelerate Growth for an Agile Business on Amazon today. And if you love it, leave us a review. For more information, head over to strategysprints.com. Your own business, Lodi, is growing.
Yes.
And how do you find new clients? How do you start new conversations around these topics?
So finding new clients is really, really bespoke for us. Because our main clientele are public figures, and they're really insulated from cold calling. So if you were to try and cold call the most famous person you know, you would probably be immediately rejected, like a virus in the immune system. You'd be blackballed pretty quickly. And so it's important to know the social element of how you sell into our world. And part of that means people trickle in. We basically develop a lot of partnerships across different industries, and you tell them, hey, if your clients have these problems, make sure you let us know. And that keeps top of the funnel pretty filled.
How do you stay top of mind with blogs, articles, emails?
Yeah. LinkedIn for us is a really big space. And I think a more generalized piece of advice is know your channel. I know our channel is LinkedIn. We have Instagram posts that do just fine, and we play a little bit on X, but we know that the bulk of the people that are concerned about this problem are in fact on LinkedIn. So we do consistent blogs that we create. We have a really great research team. It's actually one person, and she figures out everything that needs to go into these blogs and sites and sources, everything, so that we have high quality content. And that's a big strategy for us as well in a world where it's very easy to create some ChatGPT authored blog. um, it's hard to say, okay, I'm going to sit down and build, a paper that would be submitted in any kind of collegiate class, right? Like there's sourcing and thought behind it. There's critical thought around even saying, hey, I presented this idea, but there's actually a conflicting idea that people should be aware of as well. And you don't really get that in a lot of the chat GPT style author this blog. So I would say the first one is know your audience and our audience on LinkedIn. And then two, make sure you have really high quality content that when people are reading it, they'll get they'll feel amazed because they're realizing, oh, this is not an AI generated piece of content. And anyone that goes to our blog, you'll see that all of our content is really well researched. So yeah, I would encourage you in the advice really is for us, it's well researched blogs. For you, it might be something different, but I would think about how can I generate something that is within 10 seconds, people realize this cannot be generated by AI. This is not automatic drivel content leaking out into the web, but in fact, someone like put a lot of thought into it. So whatever that is for you and your audience, I would encourage you to do more of that, and stay away from competing with LLM generated content.
Yes. Your blog is really well curated, well done, and you see that somebody puts love into it, into curating it. And it's just one person.
Yeah, no, it's just one person. She has an economics degree, so she is used to doing a ton of research. But yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into them.
And how do you pick up the conversation so people see the blog? What happens next?
So oftentimes the blogs will come up in the middle of our sales conversations. So we'll be talking to someone and selling them, and they'll mention, "Hey, I actually saw that thing that you put on LinkedIn." Right? It's very subtle. It's just a little touch point, or we'll get engagements from the blog from people, and that's a reminder to go reach out to those people too, right? Because there'll be someone, especially with us, we're growing really fast, and so some of that means that uh, things can get ignored or forgotten. And unfortunately, that could mean a partner, right? Which you never want. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm perfect. We do that sometimes too. And so putting out this content, you can also see who's engaging with it to remind yourself, oh, yes, that person needs a touch point. There's nothing wrong with their account. There's nothing wrong with them, but like they deserve a little love. I'm going to send them an email and ask them, how things are going. How was that vacation last summer? So it's a really complicated game. And I know I'm not describing like, hey, how do you go mega scale with 100,000 likes? But that's not the kind of company that we are running. We are trying to figure out of the 40, 50, or 400 people that like a post, how are we targeting our audience correctly?
How did you learn all of this? It needs immense technical expertise. I know that you studied math, but what
Hmm.
about your team? How do you stay on top of this?
Um, Man, there's no magic there's no magic formula. We were really, really dumb and bad until we weren't. And so a lot of it's like trial and error. So there's a couple of things in that. The first one is from a technical capacity, yes, I have a background in math, and I was lucky enough to find a lot of really nimble thinkers early on, like maybe 10 years ago, where we did consulting together. And that flexibility of thought allowed us to realize a few key things. One of them was in 2015, 2016, we realized the way that we were building machine learning systems, which was very, very much us with math and the numbers in a room trying to build the line of best fit, which sounds boring and it is a little bit. But we realized at one point, like, oh, neural nets are going to eat our lunch. Like there was this thing that happened in the industry, and we weren't going to die on the hill of, well, the old way is the best way, right? Because there was a lot of people at that time, and now no one ever hears about them that was saying, oh, well, neural nets are overkill. You don't need any of that. That's not a big deal. The way we've been doing it's just fine. And those people are forgotten. But at the moment, it doesn't feel like, oh, I need to jump ship and figure this thing out. Or I'll be forgotten. That's clear. Everyone would do that, including they would do that. Instead, you have to think about, okay, critically, is this thing going to upend me? Right? Like, is there an existential crisis here? And if there is, what can I do now to adjust? And so back to the like trial and error, 2015, 16 timeframe, we just kind of buckled down and said, let's try and figure out how we'll do neural nets versus the traditional way. And that served us very well. And we had a few instances of that in the last probably 10 years where we've said, no, this is actually the way we have to go. And we did really hard things to make that happen. Um, yeah, but yeah, and then but of course the team is very smart, and I'm very very lucky to work with them. But it's it's really about trying to understand where things are going and how not to drown in the tidal wave.
How many people are you?
40.
40 people.
Yeah.
And how do you organize the sales process? Do you have setters and closers or just closers?
Uh, I would say it's just closers. We have a small sales team, and they can handle all the funnel. So they will receive clients or receive leads, and they'll process them all the way through to close.
That's amazing. And do you train them in-house or do you hire them very experienced and trained already?
It's a combination. They come to us with a lot of knowledge on sales that are broad, and then we try to give them as much entertainment knowledge as possible because we sell a lot into the entertainment industry. And for some of them, they came with that entertainment knowledge, and for others, not. So it's I give the best non-answer with that, but it's a combination.
Yes. And so industry expertise or intimacy with that world seems to be maybe even more important than technique in your case.
Than almost anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of industries are this way, and people don't appreciate them that much. Is that they want to just build a sales process, which is it's too generic, and there are some industries you can get away with that. I think one of the more classic ones is like solar sales, right? Like you're going like door to door basically, and there's like kind of a way that you can train and bring people in and do that. Um, but other industries, a lot of industries, in the first maybe 5 minutes, they want to know if you know their problem.
Hmm.
In fact, when I did consulting, my party trick was telling them what their problem was that they had not told me yet.
Mm.
So if Simon, if you and I were sitting down and you wanted an AI consultant, and you're like, hey, this, I would sit down. The first thing I would do is say, hey, look, you probably called me because, and it wasn't be generic, it'd be something specific like I see that you probably have a rapidly growing audience and you're trying to figure out how to market to all of them. And You need really specific content that you don't know how to target everyone and then receive all that data and then modify it. Like it'd be like a real, and I've just made that up, right? But like there'd be like a real specific
You
kind
would
of
start
problem
consulting already. Yeah.
immediately. Like, I think this is what your problem is. Tell me if I'm wrong. And I'd be right 95% of the time. And the more specific you get, the better. I remember one time there was this white paper that was written about this really odd machine learning process. And I knew the company was trying to ingest, it was a large online real estate company. You can fill in the blank on whatever brand you use, but it was of that size. And I was meeting with them and I sent them this paper and I said, I bet you're trying to process contracts and you don't know how to sort them because they're always a mess in real estate and there's different, every contract is different, has different amendments on it. And you need to digest them into one cohesive system, probably across different states. And that got me a contract. Like there's like that was like so specific. They're like, yeah, actually, that is really wild. And so I would say back to your question on sales, I think the closer or the more you can communicate that you understand your client's problems, the more likely they'll let you solve it for them.
Absolutely. What inspires you? Do you have specific books or podcasts that inspire you right now?
Hmm. You know, I tend to read more industry stuff because I really want to, as I not to beat a dead horse on this. I really do want to try and understand my customer more. So sometimes customers will recommend books and I'll read those. One of them was Write a Publicity. It's a really wonderful book on like what we talked about kind of at the start of the call around, what does it mean to own your face? Because Write a Publicity is something that's coming up quite often. In fact, Write a Publicity came around as a bigger concept with the camera over 100 years ago. So when the camera came out, it was one of the first pieces of technology that really said, well, I can take your likeness and put it in a paper or put it on a cereal box, right? And sell that. And so many questions came up around this because before a camera, it was, someone drawing your face or painting your face. And
Don't let
that
anybody
can't
take
just
a
happen.
picture of you. It can take your soul.
Yeah, that's right. And so yeah, I think I spend a lot of my time in industry items.
I love this. Look, where can people find you, start a conversation with you?
LinkedIn. I have a pretty unique name. You could type me and you'll find me. Send me a DM. If you know any engineers, we're hiring as many of the best engineers as we can find. So, as an absolute shameless plug, please come and work with me. Send me your resume. We like engineers.
It's Luke Arrigoni, everyone. Lukearrigoni. Thank you so much, Luke, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience with us, and keep rolling.
Thank you very much.
Avoid trying to do thousands of things that doesn't work. We have 274 templates for your business success. Reach your ambitious goals with one-on-one sprint coach. We double your revenue in 90 days.
What if your business would run well even when you are on vacation? Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale.